Hello, and welcome to another Liftinstituut expert session. In this series of short video conversations, we hear from experts around the world who share their knowledge, experience, and views on a variety of vertical transportation subjects. Today we're going to discuss the new machinery regulation, and to do that we have Willem Kasteleijn. He's the product manager for certification at Liftinstituut. Willem, good to see you again.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yes.
Nice to be here.
Yes, so give us an introduction, product manager certification. I got that right?
Yes.
What does that role entail?
As a product manager, I'm technically responsible for the certification activities that we do as Liftinstituut.
Yeah.
And that's in the basic, the idea of this function.
Sure, and if you're doing your job right, what are the goals of your role, or what are you pushing for in that role?
Well, in my role, it's of course an important job is just the maintenance of all our technical procedures that we have within the company. It's also looking around in the world if there are developments which are interesting for our company to develop new services for.
Yeah, and that was my next question: is why now? Like, what changes? Why are changes called for at this point in time?
Well, in this time, we see the development, of course, in techniques, which are important. Yeah. We see developments in legislation, European legislation, which is important. And that's what we have to deal with.
Yeah, and it's been 20 years, I think, since the last major update to this.
Yeah, when we look at the machinery directive, which we have nowadays for machine safety, it's more than 20 years old. And when legislation is this old, then it's time to update, and that was the reason for the update to the new machinery regulation.
Got it. And what are the technical changes that led to this? I know the machinery directive is now the machinery regulation.
That's correct.
Important to have a cool new name, a rebranding. But what are the technical updates?
Well, in the basis, the machinery regulation is the same as the machinery directive. Okay. From a technical point of view. But there are some important updates related to technical developments, and two of them are issues on cybersecurity and on artificial intelligence. Okay. Yeah, which is everywhere these days. Yeah. Exactly.
Interesting. And what's the priority there? Like, what do people need to keep in mind when working with those?
Yeah, that's also important to know that of course cybersecurity and artificial intelligence are let's say big balloons of techniques, and for machinery. It's important that when we talk about cybersecurity, that the machine has to be safe at all time.
Got it. Yeah.
And that's also the goal when we look at artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is also introduced in many machines, many control systems of machines. But there it's also important that the artificial intelligence system that is used will always keep the machine in a safe state.
Right. So it's almost like you can use this new technology. You can create a fancy robot elevator as long as it is just as safe as it was without that. Yes.
Exactly.
Okay. And there have been changes to the Annex. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, there are a few or a number of annexes to the machinery regulation, which were also there in the machinery directive. One important annex is the in the machinery regulation, the Annex I. That is the annex which refers to the high-risk machines. Okay. And in the old machinery directive, we only had one annex with high-risk machines, and in the regulation, this annex is split into two parts, a part A and a part B.
And not to interrupt you, but a high-risk machine would be like a vehicle lift or something like that. What would make something high risk?
Yeah, that's indeed a vehicle lift is an example of a high-risk machine in Annex I of the machinery regulation under part A. And in part A, and that's new compared with the directive. In Part A, it's always necessary that a notified body is involved in the conformity assessment procedure.
Okay, got it. And then the other category are not high risk, or
that's still high risk, but it is, let's say, a little bit.
It's just as important that it's safe.
Risk.
Right.
But it is still a machine which might need involvement of a notified body in the conformity assessment procedure. For instance, if there is no harmonized product standard for the machine.
Right, and how does a harmonized standard relate to the machinery directive, now the machinery regulation? How do those relate?
Well, the standards, the harmonized standards, are actually the technical documents which you can use for, let's say, a specific machine to know how to design and construct such a machine. Where the machinery regulation is more the legal document with the legal requirements for machinery.
Okay, got it. And when will all this come into effect? What's the timeline here for shifting from machinery directive to machinery regulation?
Also interesting, very interesting question, which was a long time not very clear in Europe. The machinery regulation is already published at this moment. But that does not mean that you can already apply the machinery regulation. We are at this moment in a transition period, which means that the machinery regulation is there, but only to adapt for all interested parties to adapt to the new regulation. With your procedures, with your techniques. Also for authorities, it's important to adapt their surveillance procedures, etc. So at this moment, it's still machinery directive, and the machinery regulation will only come into effect in 2027.
Okay, so there's still plenty of time to adapt to what projects you're working on or what new technologies you're developing to make sure that it's compliant when that happens. Okay.
Exactly.
Fantastic. I think that is all for today, so thank you for joining us, Willem. And thank you for joining us at home for another Liftinstituut expert session. You can find more editions of our expert sessions on our YouTube channel, so go to YouTube, search for Liftinstituut, and click subscribe. Did you know our expert sessions are also available as a podcast? So you can go to your favorite podcast app and search for Liftinstituut and subscribe there as well. If you have an interesting topic for a future expert session, you can let us know in the comments. And we'll see you next time for another Liftinstituut expert session.